It is jumping off a cliff over here. Every time I hit record, I am the fool jumping off the cliff and hoping I will not hit the ground. That is the image I see. Welcome back, Artist Journal, March 12th, 2025. Warming up. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. There is no take two, my friends. Go. Go, go, go. So, excuse me. Okay, let's go. There is no second chance. You know, it's kind of important to remember. Probably the biggest mistake I made, not to digress too far, but I think it'll be a shorter show. You know, probably the biggest mistake I made, there are younger people, as they're sometimes called, who watch this show. Probably the biggest mistake I made in my 20s as an artist was thinking I had all the time in the world and thinking that I could endlessly prepare. And it's really a lesson that should be learned as soon as possible, which is to just go for the final product or to do something of significance, to not overly prepare is maybe a better way of stating it. The sooner you start not over preparing for some, as Brian Tracy calls it, for someday island, someday I'll do this and someday I'll do that. The sooner you enter the ring, the sooner you're playing the game for real, the better. And the sooner you will start to feel in the game, and the losses will be real, but the wins will also be real. So if there's one thing I would tell my younger self, it would be don't overthink it. And, one of my favorite comments I get on this show is to do, Adrian, I'm doing all the work because I'm watching your show and I'm realizing to stop, think about it, and do it. If there's any takeaway here, it's stop thinking and go. Another way of putting it, which I've told this story many times, but is quantity over quality, which sounds sacrilegious, and I'm going to be the first person to think, cover your ears. What do you mean quantity over quality? And I say that with a lot of reservation because ultimately we want quality. But if, to illustrate the point, as I have many times here, there was a time when I was making 2 paintings a year. And actually, no, it was 2 paintings over 2 years. It was a painting a year. So and I have to say, unless you have a very specific agenda that you're trying to capture, it's a terrible way to work, from my perspective. People make art for different reasons. People make different kinds of art. We are speaking in generalizations here. But again, it was a Copernican revolution in my mind when, after 3 years, was it, of frustration, that I said, forget everything, screw it, I'm making a painting today, and there's a time limit on it, and what's going to come out is what's going to come out, and I like that work as much, and maybe even in retrospect, let's put it as much. I don't know if I'd like it more, but I like it as much, for different reasons, as the works I'd been spending a year on. So there's a very important kind of lesson there for me, and I never looked back. I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulder. And of course, it's not easy to basically rewire your brain. I mean, we're kind of back to the brain and the paths, the pathways of consciousness, so to speak. You literally have to start digging, new, brain neural pathways. Okay? That's why it's hard. But I have to say, from a happiness point of view, and even from a professional point of view as an artist, as I like to say, there is a credibility in being prolific. And, your classic examples of that, you might look at a Picasso or a Warhol, where it seemed to be very conscious that, that almost like a size matters type of mentality, where it's sort of like, okay, I don't know how many works Warhol or Picasso put out, but it's something like 100,000, right? We could look that up if we have the energy and time. It's something like 100,000, let's call it. And I calculated it out. You'd have to make 3 works to match Picasso's life work. You'd have to put out 3 works a day, I believe, for 10 years straight. Which in the digital world, I would argue, you see these AI artists, like if Strange Thing, was forced to do it, I think could do it, so to speak. Scamra and, we start putting AI into the mix, you can do it. I'd even argue you can do it without AI. I'm starting to get to 2 or 3 a day, which is one of the most liberating feelings in the world. So let's begin. We are 6 minutes into my digression here, but an important, what I would tell my younger self, or as William Burroughs would put it, words of advice for young people. A wonderful skit. Beware. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to. Okay. Let me begin. Getting too comfortable in front of the camera here. Yuri J. Stockpot. I kind of love this pot here. It's a wonderful work. 4 works put out at once. Kind of a fun pace. Sometimes we see it with waffles too, where it's like, okay, here's 4 works. Here's 5 works. Here's 3 works. It's a fun way of releasing work, isn't it? And it stands to reason because they seem to be all part of a series. It's almost the equivalent of an art show, but in the digital world. It happens more frequently than art shows in the physical world, and they're smaller because, of course, you don't need to put out 20 works. You'd be overdoing it. But you put out 4 works, as Yuri J has done here in the kitchen, from the Outlines of Our Lives, a series here, Teapot and The Pot, all wonderful works. It's kind of a fun way of releasing work. It's like, okay, here's the latest works. Here's the latest thesis. Here's the latest argument, aesthetic argument that Yuri J is making. And what I also think is interesting, which I have also kind of, pricing your work is a very interesting aspect, and we'll get to the works themselves in a second. But you see here, this one's a 1 of 1 for 500 Tezos. This is a 1 of 1 with a 300 Tezos auction, and starting bid of Second Breakfast, this beautiful egg. And here it is an edition of 1 for 444 Tezos. And here is an edition of 11 for, I believe it was 40 Tezos. And that looks like it is sold out, if I am not, it is. Absurdity selling one on secondary for 111. You know what's interesting about it? They seem very well priced, I would argue, particularly you consider Yuri J's mark. It all makes sense to me. And you look at the Tezos price, about $350 for a really nice Yuri J 1 of 1. That's about right. I also think it's interesting how, every work is kind of different. It's like, okay, maybe this one's 300, right? Maybe this one, okay, maybe it's not 500, maybe it's 444. But I kind of it's kind of interesting. They seem actually, I totally agree with the pricing, so to speak. It's quite interesting. And so when you're pricing your work, at least this is a kind of lesson I've learned over time. Because one of the beautiful things of being in the digital art space is you sell a lot of work. Even if it's small sales or medium sales or whatever, you sell way more work than you would in the physical world. Just by virtue of how easy it is, the communities, the phenomenon of digital art on the blockchain. As such, you become much more conscientious, aware of how to price your work and what a work is worth. In the physical world, if they don't know, they go, okay, what is this artist sold for in the past? How big is the work, right? And they do the math. And so here, what I love about it is we don't have the same kind of size, even though size does matter, one could argue, in terms of the pricing. We don't have the same kind of importance, we might say emphasis given to size. So all to say, in the digital world, you sell way more. So I think you get a better feeling for what a work should go for. In other words, how the impact of the work. And in other words, you might not want to put just a strict template on, I have always sold for 100 Tezos, so I will always continue to sell for 100 Tezos. Some works are going to be kind of more spectacular and more kind of, people want to run after more than others. And one could argue your pricing should reflect that, right? And I kind of think that's what we see here. So this is someone who's sold a ton of work on the blockchain, and I think that's part of what you see here. Now let's look at the actual work here. 10 minutes in. So here it is. So we got 4 works. It kind of looks like carrots in a pot here. And you see what is indisputably a digital painting here, a digital art piece. And the reason I say that is because look at all of the complexity, the different kinds of patterns here. People can love it or not, but without question, there is a heck of a lot of complexity and intentionality in this work, which seems to be, I guess Yuri J often does interiors, right? Domestic interiors as well as domestic exteriors. Sometimes you'll see a house and a little landscape or a shed, right? Or a shovel in the garden. Very kind of home-based. But what I think we also see here is art, cooking as metaphor, right? In a sense, what we see here, I would argue, is the equivalent of Yuri J cooking. And it's sort of like every meal turns out different. And what we see here, bringing it back to a couple of episodes ago, is this conversation Yuri J is having where, okay, I'm going to try this. This is happening. And then the judgment comes into line and then starts kind of dialoguing with what Yuri J is making. And then resulting, and here is the conversation. This is the result, of the eggs. And again, if you're spending a year on this, you might be humming and hawing over every little speck here. But if you're not, which is a much funner way to work, you're going, okay, this is looking good. I'm liking the texture here. A little exploration here. And then I'm going to bring this in. It's lighter. And I'd argue it becomes more about this conversation. It's not about this. There's less pressure, so to speak, on the artists themselves, but almost in the work. It's looser. It's funner. It's kind of more relaxed. And that looks like, say, maybe a propane thing. And of course, it looks like the effects on effects, as we've mentioned here, the mosaic filter is getting its own treatment here, which is quite interesting. And so, as you see here, all of this wonderfulness, and look at the underneath of the pan here. So again, indisputably, digital art. Like there's something going on here for those that are even new. And for those that are new, they might go, or even new to digital art, they might go, well, I don't know about this. But even if you feel that way, there is something indisputably going on here. There is artistry at work. There is an argument that is being presented to you aesthetically here and saying, here, what do you take that? What do you think of that? I declare it thus. I submit this, and I present it publicly. And so here, another one, the pot. So again, we have this wonderful cooking metaphor for artistic practice, intentional or not. I suspect, obviously, they're aware. Yuri is aware of that. And look at this awesome. Again, seemingly using outlines as an excuse for a kind of digital art textural exploration of a certain kind. Look at and even in here, and Yuri J doesn't even have to love, maybe this effect isn't Yuri J's favorite effect, and we see the doubling. But then within the larger context, within the contrast, within all the exploration, it becomes a part of an argument, so to speak, of a larger argument, I would argue. So all to say, delightful complexity here from Yuri J with what looks like a 69 on that pot there. for the culture there. And again, here we just see all of this kind of awesome textures here. Again, so the complexity itself, you can think what you want of the argument, but there is no question that something is happening here, that there is artistry at work. So very cool work to get us started. So Yuri J, that's on the Tezos blockchain on Object. Let us look at the comments here on last episode, Emerging Artists. You know what's funny? It seemed to do pretty well in terms of people, the response. I almost didn't want to release this. I was like, I don't know if I can release this. It's just another example. You're your own worst kind of critic and your own worst kind of judge of your own work. Let's continue. So Musty, lol, it's funny that you thought I was trolling. I was indeed being genuine in last episode's comment. It's beautiful that we share a similar experience or feeling about video creation. Also thought-provoking to see that many artists settle for less only to realize that what they thought was less might actually be their true calling. Life seems to have a way of sorting us into our respective fields. I suppose great vid as always. Thank you. Great to hear from you again, Musty. And great comments. Rosacho, I agree. The digital token and the prints are totally different things. And it's kind of as clear as the sentence here. A digital token and a print is a different thing. Exactly. It's nice for the artist to let collectors know their digital piece is being printed. But at the end of the day, the print is a separate work. And I think collectors have to assume that there could be iterations of a digital work in physical printed form. I think that has to be assumed. Although, as Rosacho puts out, it's nice for the artist to let collectors know. But I think that just has to be assumed. You're buying the digital. Maybe sending a copy of the print to collectors would be a good move. Yeah, and then so this comes down to how do you want to manage this relationship? What kind of relationship do you have? Do you even know who this person is? And if you do, but maybe you want to, encourage them and say, hey, you bought my art, here's a bonus. Collectors don't actually buy the copyright, and that is actually what it comes down to from a legal perspective. The artist still owns it and can do whatever they want with the artwork unless they decide to sell the rights. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. Yeah, exactly. I think you, as I said, you basically hit the nail on the head there, Rosacho. Great to hear from you. Minty Fresh Vibes, awesome to hear from you. The Spidey image strikes me, I believe has a radio show, actually. Decentralized tech, Web3, film, and music. In real life, writer and producer. This is Tech Friends on Rug Radio. There we go. So has a podcast. The Spidey image strikes me as derived from Sony Pictures' key art for Spider-Man 2. So this work here, I was trying to figure it out. Where is this from? And so you nailed it, Minty Fresh Vibes. Was used as a teaser poster and then the soundtrack cover. I worked on this project when I was at the studios. So it sounds like Minty Fresh Vibes actually worked on this. How cool is that? So small world. It's a small world after all. Uxine, great to hear from you, Minty. Uxine, naming a great new rock band, King Gizzard, the Lizard Wizard. Indeed. Talking about we're running out of names here. Yes, and I actually had, and I won't say this on the program, this is actually a name of a band that I had kind of joked about when I was in Toronto with my friends at the bar. We should have we kind of had a concept there, but we never took it past that stage. So hilarious. Great to hear from you, Uxine. Keep us updated. Rural Idol, another great show, Poco, really thought-provoking. I live scarcely 200 yards from a dynamic contemporary art gallery, and I've not set, in quotes, and I've not set foot through the door in 2 years. Yet I can set my watch by the journal, so make of that what you will. It's not just the quiff. This is quite interesting, because I relate to this as well. It's quite interesting. My art needs, so to speak, are completely satisfied by this scene, and I still go out, but I have very, minimal expectations, so to speak, in my heart of hearts. I go for the social. Maybe I'll be surprised. I love art, and I love physical art, and sometimes you are surprised. But generally speaking, it's quite interesting how well this digital art scene serves the needs of art consumers. It's quite remarkable. So I hear you. And I relate, Rural. Thanks for the comment. Cheers. Custom Horror, happy Monday. Great to hear from you, Custom Horror, on a Monday. Why aren't these artists stars? Because there are many star-level artists online. Some great picks. I'm only 16 minutes in. Yeah, it is interesting, and it's always a matter of opinion, isn't it? It's quite interesting, though, but I'm still kind of back to, like, you know, we're going to get to Pompidou, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Centre Pompidou in Paris, the main contemporary art, modern art museum, is shutting down for 5 years. And I thought to myself, oh no, it shut down yesterday. I'm going to Paris in a month. Darn, I missed it. And then I was like, I don't even know if I knew about it or if it was closing in a month, if I would go. And it kind of brings up a whole kind of question. I've kind of become bored with seeing the same artists. Oh, there's the Francis Bacon, there's the Robert Delaunay or whatever, there's the Leger. Like, it's like listening to an album you've heard 700,000 times, right? Oh my God, there's that modernist that I can't wait to see. You know, like, so the art industry is, let's put it this way, is, incredibly conservative in how slow it moves. And then it'll be like, okay, we finally have a new star. It's Banksy. And then who is the other guy who has like the Mickey Mouses with the X's? I should know the name. Cause or something, right? Oh, now it's this person. And then we all have to like, jump. Oh, like we all love that person. It's just getting like, and I'm kind of back to, I talk about what credibility does the crypto, someone who bought a bunch of Ethereum is now an art expert telling us all what to think and what's worth anything. I'm almost back to the, art industry itself. It's like, to me, there's a credibility that is eroding with every passing day. And it's not to say there aren't a bunch of actually brilliant people. I think of, and you know what went through my mind when I thought of that? The curators at the Modern Art Museum in Rome are fantastic. But you know why? They took works from, say, 1880, then they juxtaposed it with a work from 1940. Like, they're mixing it up so much that they're able to make something new out of something we've seen a billion times. A movie we've seen a million times, right? So, all to say, I'm not sure if there's what the solution is, but right now, I'm kind of like, it's not gallery. An Instagram account is kind of, in my mind, leaving like a lot of these so-called blue chip contemporary art galleries in the dust. And what are they doing? They're just finding stuff online and then posting it on their Instagram account. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Anyways, thank you for the comment. Tornado Rodriguez. Hey, Pogo, thanks for showing the new jar. It was done by Dither. For my on-chain series jars, I was wondering, it's my first on-chain series. Multiple artists have joined to make their own jar. This is the last one. It will be auctioned today. Here are all the jars that have been done so far. So thank you for clearing that up. And the green one, this one here, is Dither. So thank you for pointing that out, Tornado. And Minty Fresh Vibes, don't we need some good art this week? Indeed we do. Lucky for us. I'm so thrilled. And, you look at Yuri J and it's just like, okay, here's just some fresh, okay, trying different things, very interesting, brand new. It's on sale. You see if it sells. When's it going to sell? How much is it selling for? What's the secondary? It's quite fun. And it's very fast, interestingly. The exact opposite, you might say, of the conservative nature of the, okay, we got to wait another 10 years for another star to be manufactured for us, right? Okay, Evelyn O. Thanks, Adrian. So I was wondering about Evelyn O's abstracts here. It's old AI outputs from 2022, completely repainted in Photoshop, Procreate, and various apps. Then made my own dataset model of those paintings. And this is an AI output. Again, they're not necessarily from the same work, but you do get the point. Have a great evening. So basically going back and forth from AI to apps, right? Photoshop, Procreate, and various apps, and then maybe back to AI. So very interesting. I'm a huge fan. Exporting. So it seems like we're seeing a lot of exporting here. Thank you for the comment. Evelyn, Collector Official, awesome to hear from you. Awesome. Thank you again for that write-up you did about a month ago. Deckart, coincidence, just looking at the polka drawing as I've been watching yesterday's Artist Journal, which opened up with Kayla Mattis, Spider-Man. You know what's so funny about that? I actually recorded about 5 minutes, and the video, I just was like, I need to restart this video, whatever. In that version of the video, I actually had the polka. It's actually a painting, as you probably know. It's a painting, and I actually brought it up here. Or did I? Anyways, we'll look at it in a second. I brought up actually the painting. It's actually quite large. And it's quite exciting. And the first version of the show, I actually looked at that. Just goes to show, every show, I actually don't know what's going to happen, which is kind of fun, isn't it? Anyways, thank you for the comment and the reference. Marietta, appreciate the mention, dear Adrian. Great to hear from you, Marietta, out of Buenos Aires. Wojak, W74, another lovely episode. Thank you for the support, my friends. And thank you to Sabato, actually, for sending this my way. It is, in fact, a meme that already exists. The political situation in my country does not affect my mental health. Hilarious meme. So Kayla Mattis, choosing the memes online. It's quite interesting, actually, though, when you look. So now we can do the comparison. It's actually quite close, isn't it? But she does simplify it with the black in the background at the top. So interesting. So here is the polka. Yeah, and so here it is. So this is actually it's quite large, 9 feet by 10 feet. So 280, almost 2.8 meters by 2.1 meters. I saw this at actually the first time I discovered polk at the MoMA in New York. That was a tough show for me. But I was totally impressed, and I was just like, how have I not heard of this person? Very important artist, Zigmar Polka. German, what do they call it? It was their version, like consumer something. Let's just look at polka art movement. It wasn't pop art. They had their own name for it. Capitalist realism. It's called capitalist realism. Has been used particularly in Germany to describe commodity-based art from pop art. So basically it is the German equivalent. When used in this way, it is a play on the term socialist realism. Interesting. So very interesting there. Okay, so where are we? Spider-Man is fine art subject. It's a great actual question. It's quite dynamic. Steve Ditko, I believe, made the costume. Amazing Fantasy number 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, is kind of an interesting story in the sense that Steve Ditko did the original cover, but then I think Stan Lee, who was all about the cover and said 90% of the sales from these comics in the 60s came from the cover, I believe got Jack Kirby to redo the cover. So actually Jack Kirby actually did the cover for Amazing Fantasy number 15, as far as I understand, even though it's ultimately a Steve Ditko, visual creation, from what I understand. I mean, there is some debate, but it seems to be right. But anyways, what a dynamic visual thing Spider-Man is. DCN Trolls, Danny's on fire. Looking forward to tonight's opening of Kayla Mattis Mimesis at Charlie James. So Danny's on fire actually went to this. How awesome is that? And something I wanted to point out here is a very important technique which Kayla Mattis is using, which is the different size pixels. And it's kind of easy to overlook this. You see here, like perhaps, and we don't even know if these are pixels here. I mean, it's more like a Simpsons thing. But you could imagine if these were small pixels and then you have large pixels, you get contrast. And the reason I mention it is because it's often overlooked. Because usually when you work in, say, pixel art programs, the pixels are basically all the same size. But it's a very powerful technique to So to use different kind of sized pixels, and then you start juxtaposing them. Orca Uprising. I've been learning about the Orca. I've been learning. Yeah. So, anyways, too bad we don't have prices on this. Too bad we don't have prices. This was awesome. I think I started with this like a year ago. Yeah, that was so great. Mr. Bezold, the digital phantasmagoria of Lorna Mills. In an era dominated by the sleek polish of high-definition media, the oeuvre of Lorna Mills offers an alternative stance towards digital aesthetics. Read this 1,750-word essay by Mr. Bezold. And these are some of my favorite works by Lorna Mills, the nature works. I actually have a couple of them, I believe. Wow, look at Strano. And look at RJ, the Mad Ones. Good night, all. And what else do we have? Helios. Anyways, okay, so all to say, Mr. Bezold with a essay, The Digital Phantasmagoria of Lorna Mills here. So huge essay on Lorna Mills. Pretty cool. Nice looking website there too. And here it is. As the Centre Pompidou closed on Monday, Parisians said their goodbyes. And it was so funny. As I was saying, it's like, at first I was like, oh, I won't be able to. And then I was like, oh, I don't think I would care. Like, and nothing against it. I'm sure I'd enjoy it. You take me there, I'd be like, wow, that was awesome. Right? But it's kind of interesting. The outdoor balconies, so they're going to be closed for 5 years, which is also kind of controversial. In September, the iconic building will fully close for 5 years. I guess it's less than the Pergamon, which is going to reopen in 2037. I guess it's going to half open 2027 to give them, their due. But I mean, 2037, 5 years. To mark the occasion, the museum, considered Paris's top institution for modern and contemporary art, celebrated with a long weekend of festivities, along with free entry to the collection. All very interesting. So there's Pompidou. Very controversial when it came out, as you can imagine. In the middle of Paris, putting this structure, but which has become an institution. Kurt Hustle Collective. Let's look at the art here. So speaking of an wonderful institution of their own, Encyclomedia. So beautifully glitched. Beautiful music. And just hilarious and fun as usual. So this is Kurt Hustle Collective. One going to Haiti Rockette so far. Edition of 10 for 10 Tezos each. Tezos is pretty reasonably priced, as you see here. 150 Tezos is only $100. We're like at 66 cents, I guess. Here's Martin Bruce, who's been putting out a ton of work. It's awesome. So this is for auction at 150 Tezos. Another interesting piece here with a candle. Kind of reminds you of Gerhard Richter doing the candle here. An interesting background here. Kind of looks like some clouds with some TV sky. And again, just another interesting piece. Let's see if we're missing any here. Wow, look at this. Failed Mission. 17 Tezos edition of 11. So another just super interesting work here. Kind of looks like a forest, but something else kind of scribbled around or smudged around. Very interesting piece. Steggy D and RJ picking up Failed Mission. Cool work. Rainy Fish, A Penguin's Dream. Let's go. Another very nicely colored work here by Rainy Fish. Love the corners here too. And I think Rainy Fish was saying she uses AI music, which is getting pretty darn good. Super nice. Kind of looks like a whale or something. I don't know. And they're all the Bug Universe. Let me see if I can minimize that. Penguin Dreamed. Edition of 1 for 180 Tezos. And that is still available. So that is on Tezos. Here's Mumble Boy, a new work. Lass mich einfach spielen. Let me simply play. I believe, testing my German out here. Mumble Boy. Edition of 1. And so here it is. Mumble Boy playing. Here with collage and digital experimentation. Playing again with the tiling, interestingly. Very interesting, isn't it? Because tiling is a very, I always think of Sprite now with the tiling. And maybe there's another way I'm sure there are other ways and programs of doing it, but interesting. Interesting, isn't it? Beautiful digital artwork there, but going back and forth between digital and physical from Mumbleboy. Another work here by Nuv 1914, taking on what I think is quite a famous Berthe Morisot. Is that how you say? I want to say Beth Morisot, or let's look at the... who was a woman impressionist. Is that how you say her name? It is Berthe Morisot. Yeah, well-known impressionist painter. Berthe Morisot. Yeah, so taking on a Berthe Morisot work here, edition of 10, and all almost selling to Miss Freedom. 2, 4, 6, 8 selling to Miss Freedom, Scamra picking up 1, and 1 left. So Miss Freedom loving it. So interesting piece here. And Una Dia de Verano. An evening, day, I can't remember. I think this is Castle. We're practicing all our languages here. This is pretty cool work here. Kind of monochromatic work here by Nuv 1914 out of Argentina. Edition of 5, 9 Tezos. There's Daggy D, who is like single-handedly supporting this entire Tezos scene here, seemingly. Dan Controls, Cigarette Smoke. So I think we saw a variation on this. I don't think we've seen it, this one. So another just cool work here, seeming electric e-cigarette with just a simple gradient there, going right to the edge, I think. Or maybe right to there, not sure. Always very interesting and minimal from Dan Control. Here's Mishi Asu, picked up by Daggy D for 11 Tezos, Ecotone. I mean, it is a great time to collect when the Tezos price gets this cheap, 66 cents. I mean, again, I probably bought most of my art when Tezos was at $2 or $1.50, so maybe even more. So all to say, it's an awesome time to collect if you're into digital art collecting. So interesting piece here from Mishiasu, playing with these kind of fuzzed out gradients, a little more color in these ones. Ecotone, edition of 1, makes it kind of easy decision sometimes to purchase. And here's Juana Pedro, Rodeo drop today. So this is on Rodeo. Juana Pedro, super interesting works here. They kind of look half abstract, half representational. Cool kind of frame there too. Could hang well actually with Nuv 1914 in their own ways, kind of gradient-esque. Here's another one, and it's fun to watch this artist develop. I guess they're is that an inverse version? No. Okay, so it's actually a different version, but still just very interesting kind of experimental digital artwork there. Here is Lena, who of course I follow, Lena Eckert, who of course I follow, and Art on Bitcoin. Deluge on, I think Trigamma is TRY, if I'm not mistaken, 13 prints, and 1 of 1 original. So some work on Bitcoin here from Lena Eckart. So cool work here, nice abstract, so always interesting. Let's just bring this up a little bit bigger. So interesting, almost a kind of tiling of its own here. So cool work there, continues to be exciting on Bitcoin, and let me just bring up the mempool. It's getting pretty cheap again. And the Bitcoin itself, look at this, like things are going through. So if you put it at 2 VBytes, your work will go through. They're almost running out of transactions is what you're seeing over here. And the Bitcoin price is down. So wonderful times here for those of us who want to put art on Bitcoin. Here's someone called Ty Made, Noise Paradox. Interesting piece here. So kind of a abstract work. I guess it's a digital work. My existence is resistance, quite a following there. 10,000 people. That's impressive. Well, not sure if I've seen their work before. Gozo, interior, kind of a slightly surreal work here from Gozo, who just put out a whole show on Verse. Interesting piece. Here's Quampa, a conversation with Ori Tour MS Paint 2025. So Ori Tour, I think, is their friend, is Quampa's friend. I love how they put, how Quampa puts what looks like a new version of Microsoft Paint here into the image here. It actually seems to add a lot. in its own way. So interesting piece here, and you see all of the creativity really in this piece when we zoom up close. So I think this might be a collaboration. We're going to look in a second. 378 kilobytes, pretty small file size. You know, when you don't put gradients in, it really shrinks down the file size. Let's just see what Kwampa said here. A collaborative artwork I made with my friend and brother, Ori Tour, an incredible human being and an outstanding artist who needs no introduction. For the curious ones, you can find his work on Instagram and Behance. Here are some crops from the final piece we made. So look at that, 144,000 views. How's Kwampa doing? 43,000, almost 44,000 followers. Incredible. Has a huge following on Instagram, too. How cool is that? Here, Ilya Bliznets. So we saw this as a work in progress. It is now for sale and finished. It is an edition of one. So cool. I think it uses some AI. We'll look in a second. AI and digital painting, I think, in combination here. So interesting piece. Nice painterly piece here from Ilya Bliznets. So here is the finished version. And so, yeah, strata on top of a basic AI model forming a synthetic multi-layered canvas. I think uses digital painting and AI. Yeah, it is. AI, digital painting, and collage. There you go. So at a now being auctioned off at 150 Tezos. Ezra Eslin with a new work on Super Rare. How cool is that? POV, I love you. Point of view, I love you. And here, but a little bit of satire as usual, because we see the knife here killing the angel, who I think we saw in a previous image that just came out. So here, classic Ezra Eslin, bit of a Red Bull here. Again, violence is satire. And here, you even see some hearts like a video game at the top right. Ezra Eslin, I believe, out of Turkey. And so this is at a reserve of 0.3. And that was just put on Super Rare. So that is cool. Here is Sui Soichi. This is on Object, Morpheus Maze, Jester's Dungeon Diagram. I think we saw this, I remember seeing this key online and maybe part of this. So another just super interesting work by the original, super original Sui Soichi. Here, some cool kind of what look like icons, not even sure. Kind of a video game vibe. Cool work. The Jester. Edition of 7 and one sold at $36.69. And here is Kenneth Zapata. So continuing the collector's series here, and the textures are continue to get quite exotic, shall we say, and quite rich. And here again, you see almost this weird, almost bust of a collector, and almost ambiguous kind of, I guess there's screens with people on. Is it a Zoom call? And again, texture off the charts here. Fascinating work, isn't it? We got a few. This is an edition of 11, and this sold out at $387, keeping them pretty reasonably priced here. Only $2.50. Here is an edition of 1. This went to Tegenhoff, 50 Tezos, pretty reasonable. So another work here, as you see, again, the richness in all of these textures. And the computer screens and everything, even a little basketball. Here's another one. This is an edition of 11 and now 22 Tezos on secondary. And almost looks like Elon Musk there, but not sure. And look at the texture in here. I mean, incredible. So it just continues to kind of, and look over here in the background. They look like, are they fish in the sky? Not sure. So pretty rad. Stable diffusion and cellular automata and animated by Python script. He's now collecting a lot of Moxara and Ugo Digi. And here's one more. She's collecting Gabriel Coy and Inavare. So edition of 11, now 12 Tezos on secondary. So again, almost looks like a music program in the background here, but hard to say. But anyways, continues to be very interesting there. This was quite interesting too. So this is from a show called Objectoscope, interactive, with a whole bunch of artists here. As you'll see, 18 different artists. So let me make this big. So I believe it's interactive. So, and then you see, if you click on it fast, you almost see Mario getting the mushroom here. So pretty cool artwork here. We'll just go a little slower here, and you can recognize some of the artists here, I'm sure. So pretty cool. There's Blue Retina, there's Manidal, there's Katarina Create, and more. There's Rosetio. So pretty cool. We saw kind of a similar thing with the Edward Muybridge horse, Super Glitch Brothers. So that is 25 Tezos. I think that's on secondary. And sold out on primary, I think. Let's just very quickly look. Yep, sold out. Here is Retromanian Limbo for Retroman. So cool collab here. Let's see. I wonder who made the music. That's my question. Is it kind of sounds like Limbo synths, but maybe Retroman composition? Not sure. So cool work here. Again, playing with the video game kind of vibe, I guess, UX, narrative structure, shall we say. And featuring the Mech Sans font by Mech.txt, edition of 21. Here is Spiegel's Maskinen. And how are we doing? 46 minutes in. So new work here from this Red and Black series, which I feel like we haven't seen for a year and a half or something, which I think is awesome. As an artist, you know, I've been working on the Nostalgia Studies series. I think I started that in like 2010. It's very fun to come back to series and really explore them kind of over your whole life. I think I will, which is kind of interesting in itself. Anyways, we see the Red and Black here from Spiegel's. What is this called? Juggle. Starting auction bid of 0.666, so a little bit of hellish vibe there with the red and black and the 666. Here's her Meeple pixel art. So almost looks like a transformer. Let's look at the translation. If it works. Not sure what's going on here. Maybe in Japan they actually have real world. So all to say, here is her Meeple pixel art. The translation is not working. Kind of looks like a transformer though. So pretty rad artwork there. Here's E-Boy. Cyber P bot art print comes with a frame. Halber Ramen. So here E-Boy, German duo. And that is on Instagram. Here's Nicholas Dietrich, who of course I follow. Been working hard on a new one. Could hopefully work out quite nicely. Details of a work in progress. So always super interesting. Kind of looks like buildings in the background. Can't wait to see that. Element Lee, Serial House. So more cool pixel art here from Element Lee. I think makes it on their phone, 256 pixels. Pretty small. Most of them aren't minted, as far as I know, which is kind of interesting. I mean, this should be put on Bitcoin, but that's, you know, not everybody loves Bitcoin. But I mean, this would be probably 3 kilobytes, 5 kilobytes max, and could just sell away. And then it's on Bitcoin. Mirror 03, this is Muji. So cool work here, kind of rich, almost metallic looking deluxe paint work from Muji. Edition of 8 for 8 Tezos, 2 gone, or 1 gone. Here's Cap'n, who of course I follow Machine Sounds. Just love the palette on this and taking all of the different little things, the little compositions and putting them together in these grand compositions. Just spectacular, isn't it? Such a good idea. I mean, it reminds me of Dan Control reusing the elements, right? Here's another one, and this also looks reused here. So, you know, sample and hold is kind of what's in my brain here, or just reusing elements. Cap'n. So a couple of cool works there by Cap'n. Here's braindead.gif. I searched and searched on SuperRare. I searched braindead. I searched braindead.gif. I searched laboratory. I could not find this on SuperRare for some reason. Maybe it hasn't been listed yet. But it says March 10th, and it says the auction is live. So all to say, here is a new work here by Braindead on SuperRare. A cool kind of pixel art machine style. And there's Braindead, their icon. Here's Manidal, another great pixel artist. 2 colors. Open free mint. This is on Rodeo. So cool work from Manidal, always doing the cat. Here is a work called Incorruptible. This is Perfect Loop. Always kind of playing with, kind of creating works out of operating system icons and iconography. as it starts to disintegrate there. There's an addition of 15, and that looks like the offers are coming in strong, which is pretty awesome. Let's continue. Here's Kuro. I don't think we saw this one. When was this minted? This was minted March 11th, so a new one from Kuro here. So cool kind of glitchery, I think using the Sega Genesis glitch ROM. Very reasonably priced opening bid. Rainbow. Here's Saiko Ihara, more 3D laser scanning work, and here you go. So I wonder if this is like the equivalent of the work in progress. This is what I was wondering to myself, because it's kind of like the work in progress might actually be a pretty cool way of doing the work, right? Like, is this... So I'm not sure, but pretty rad to see it being built here. Very interesting visual experience. More 3D laser scanning work. Fascinating. Parsa Mostagim. Variation on a situation on his way 1 to 5. So here we see like a CGI. Here you see like a painting. Here you see a drawing. Quite interesting, actually, isn't it? Like a marker drawing. So interesting variations. Cool, kind of, I would say, no hygiene's work. Dare I say it, is starting to get more aesthetic all the time, interestingly. Because when No Hygiene started, it was kind of like, you'd almost be tempted to call it anti-aesthetic. I'm starting to see kind of prettier and prettier No Hygiene works from just an overall composition and color perspective. Interesting piece, again playing with the angel, which feels like almost like an internet meme at this point. We've seen so many of these. Islay. Dare. So some cool, I think, AI artworks from Islay, some nice paintings here. It is, in fact, AI, this edition at 5, one gone, and here's another one, Dare number 3. So beautiful textures here, as you can see. So beautiful AI artwork from Islay. Here's Dare number 4, almost looking like watercolors, right? So interesting work there. Edition of 5 and 3 gone. So they are selling, which is awesome. Scamra AI. Here are some nice textures from Scamra. Kind of looks like almost like a painting. What do you call that thing when you put them on a thing for supporting a painting? Which escapes me right now, but it doesn't matter. Here is Scamra also, kind of looking like on a computer. Super rich textures here as well. Interestingly, each kind of little area, almost to a certain degree, like outlines of our lives here, taking an area, giving it a certain patterning, and then taking a different area, give it a different patterning. So cool work from Scamra. Here is Kayla Mattis at Charlie James. I thought this was hilarious, actually. Let me make it bigger. Enya Orinoco Flow. The subject, it's kind of an understated talent. But the selection of iconography, because you have the whole web to choose from, I think this is hilarious and great. Kayla Mattis has shown over and over a really excellent eye for selecting what she's going to portray. Nice texture in here too, frankly. And here you see again the big pixels juxtaposed with this kind of more detailed, and this almost looks like fur, right? So super interesting work. And what is it? It's just like web browser, right? Very cool. Here's another one, probably from the same show that we're looking at. And let's see if we can make it a little bigger. Dichotomous earth, hand-woven cotton, and wool, hand-dyed rayon and eyelash yarn. So just working with whatever you can find. Very interesting. So just cool work here from Kayla Mattis. Again, here's Bondozo Bandito. And just kind of an interesting, just words, but keeping it interesting, just putting a little bit of color. And again, we're kind of back to being prolific. And when you're totally prolific, you don't become so precious, and sometimes the work benefits from not being overly precious. That's another way of saying, what we're seeing with Yuri J. So we see it here too. Dance forever, right, wrong, always. Here's Die with the Most Likes, dying of natural causes at the Olive Garden in Defiance, Ohio. And here, some nice textures and interesting piece here from Die with the Most Likes, who is incredibly prolific. And that is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, take care.